What's up, people?
What's going on, guys? What's going on? Welcome. This is the Freeman Collective. I'm your host, Ernest Russell, and coming live from Lansing. Right now, we got another topic, a good discussion to talk to you guys about. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and let my co-hosts introduce themselves. Stab, you want to go ahead?
Hey, what up, everybody? It's Stedman. I always got technical difficulties, so today I just got the Freeman's Collective logo up. My video ain't working. My internet was going crazy. It's still kind of going crazy, so you got to bear with me. They must be watching. The Freeman Collective must be doing something right. We'll get more into this very topic.
Yeah, I tell you what, and I'm Darvell. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's going to be a crazy one. It's going to be a long topic. And yes, I apologize. We're late. We're almost 25, 30 minutes late. We had technical difficulties, y'all. You know, they out here trying to knock us off the internet potentially. So we got to keep it together. So, hey, man, we got some housekeeping, Ernest, to hit people with.
Yep. As always, guys, make sure you guys like this channel. Make sure you subscribe, like this video. Leave a comment if you got anything to say. We usually, Darby, I don't know if we're hosting it from Facebook, but we'll always be live on YouTube every other Tuesday. And we do have the call line open, which you guys can see at the banner at the bottom of this page. So, feel free to plug in with us and let us know, get it off your chest. Let us know what you're thinking on these topics we're going over. And, with that being said, today our topic is what? COINTELPRO Redux, which is COINTEL Pro Part 2. So what we wanted to do with this show was pretty much lead off from where we left off when we covered, COINTEL Part 1, when we, went over the black organizations. We went over, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but Edgar Hoover's involvement, in the FBI and COINTELPRO, multiple administrations, and his specific targeting of the Black Panther Party. Leading off in this show, COINTELPRO 2, we want to really just go a little bit more in depth with this COINTELPRO operation and let you know how maybe the policies that our top government, the federal government, enacted through programs like COINTELPRO, it could have had a top-down effect where even law enforcement may have taken it upon themselves to copy or duplicate similar practices in order to achieve the end goal, which is keeping the Black community down. So we got some videos.
I'm here.
Well, you got a frozen picture. I don't know.
Hey, see, hey, look. If it ain't, I think it's another. I'm telling you, bro. The Freeman Collective. We doing our job. We freeing people. It's a day at a time. We freeing people. And they don't like it. They don't like it. Yeah, they didn't like when we talked about this the last time, so we brought it back one more again.
Yep. So that's just about what this show is going to be about, guys. Darvell, if you want to go ahead and lead us off into the local topic, I know we have some stuff to discuss there before we dive into the meat. So
always, you guys. You know what we always do? We are local to Detroit, to Michigan. We focus on making sure you understand what's going on within the box that you live in, so you know that we are the boots on the ground. This summer is going to be very hot for us. Juneteenth is going to be an extremely important day. Make sure you're staying tuned to things that are happening during Juneteenth. Especially, there's going to be some really good stuff going on over on Liver Noise. And the other thing you want to keep in mind is that we will be on some live broadcasts around Juneteenth, on Juneteenth. You got to understand the value of Juneteenth to the descendants of freedmen in this country. However, the descendants of freedmen have problems. Sometimes we are victimized by the cops. Well, very often the cops come for us. But then sometimes we have to deal with folks who come into our neighborhoods and create problems, right? And when they come into our neighborhoods and create problems and we deal with them, we can get framed as being the aggressor. But there would never have been an issue if, even the mailman didn't show up. So let's square something up, y'all. We gotta go back over here to something y'all probably remember. So for my local Detroit folk, y'all must remember this video, the girls, okay? The girls beating up the mailman.
You gotta let this happen. It's trap. I don't want them to hit you. Bro, y'all finna go to the bed. Bro, y'all hit the mailman.
They hit the mailman. They going to jail. That's what he's saying, man. So listen, y'all, that happened in Flint. We all know about Flint. Flint's one of our major cities in Michigan. It's one of the strongholds for the Black community. It's also it leans blue, right? Blue like that mailman's shirt, right? But it came out. Story just hit today, actually. That everyone said, oh, that them girls going down. The mail carrier is probably innocent. Everyone was railing against the women, but what actually happened is the mail carrier is being charged with some crimes, unfortunately. So the Detroit News is reporting today in Flint, the mail carrier has been charged with assault and battery and lying to the police. The mail carrier apparently lied to the police following that fight I just showed you guys with those two other women in that apartment complex in Flint. The charges were filed just Tuesday against Trista Page Newton, 29, by the Genesee County Prosecutor's Office. Flint police were called April 8th to a report of a hit-and-run crash and saw that the U.S. Postal Service vehicle had damage to its front end. Newton initially told officers that her vehicle was struck by another vehicle and that she was assaulted by the driver and passenger of the second vehicle. So this must be the driver and passenger of the vehicle, the two girls. Here it is, the quote of the day: the crime in Flint is out of control. A United States postal worker was attacked in broad daylight. Where is the public safety plan? There is zero fear of the police. Prayers for the mail lady. Well, the mail lady had black eyes. She had scratches and abrasions around her neck and face. However, police spoke with both the mail lady and the two women and other witnesses, and they decided to file charges against the mail lady. This is a perfect example of how a situation may not be exactly what it looks like at first glance. A lot of us are dealing with newer videos that are coming out from every other corner of the country right now, with other Black people having been, mixed up in situations where we've lost even more lives of folks who weren't even armed. But in this one, a lot of people were immediately calling for charges against the two young women involved, when in fact, according to the police investigation, they were the victims. Jumping to conclusions quickly like this and rash judgments about a situation rarely serves justice well. This is the thing. We just talked about this in the site of the whole, what's her name from Columbus? I'm so sorry.
Makia.
And
Makia Bryant.
I really hate that she lost her life. I hope she's resting in peace. And, my condolences to her family. There's a lot of people on either side of the aisle on that discussion because of the context and the situation, right? But the reality is that, there are things that mitigate and things that contribute and things that underline and create the context for these situations to occur. And then there are the actions within those situations themselves. And we need to be mindful of that as we approach them. And I think for the Black community, I know we are not necessarily holding the entire bag of resolving every issue that occurs in our community, because as we're going to get into today, COINTELPRO Part 2, you're going to find that there has been so much effort put into sabotaging our ability to even take care of the basic necessities that you are actually engineered by design to think that you did this to yourself, to think that these girls did this to themselves, to think that everybody in our community is not trying hard enough. I just got a report from our colleague here, Ernest, talking about something on the damn Clubhouse app. People running around on Clubhouse talking about, well, we don't really need it. And I worked hard and I had 3 jobs. We don't need no reparations, this and that and the third. And you guys, listen, I need you to understand that a lot of the issues we have, the squabbles we have, the misunderstandings, the jumping to conclusions within the community are actually the result of the oppressive underlying forces that have continued to sabotage, derail, plunder, and terrorize us since day one. It is literally coming to a line of going from being overt and clearly plain as day to being engineered failure, psychologically and socially engineered failure, where now you think you cut yourself, but you've been bleeding before you even knew how to pick up a knife. Think about that. Before you even knew how to mess up, you were already in the hole. So this is how this stuff works. So we need to be careful when we want to throw people in the bucket right away from our own community, but we do need to be objective and be very upfront and honest with ourselves about what we see and what's going on. So, I mean, just to bring that story back 360, y'all go check it out on the Detroit News COINTELPRO.com's website. They have the article there that I'm showing on the screen that kind of explains what happened. So, I mean, from the local beat, you know, looking at it from the Flint side of things, everybody thought it was pretty cut and dry, but sometimes they came in to cause you more harm than you could cause yourself. Go ahead, my bad.
And it's a couple points that I want to try to reiterate from the previous episode dealing with this. When I say previous episode, I mean the other COINTELPRO episode. What you find is that we have a tendency as a group, black people, to blame each other, the victims of the situation, the victims of the oppression, the victims of external forces, instead of blaming the perpetrators. And so even in this instance, right, because remember we talked about the Flint water situation too, and I had a lot of information, I left some links, I couldn't cover it all. But now let's say the Flint water happened in what, 2013 was when the news broke, 2012, so that's 9 years ago. I can't tell, the mail carrier is 29, so she was still in Flint, if she was in Flint or if she was around Flint, and the young girls look like they may be in their teens. Lead poisoning causes, and they know this, and there's documentation, that it causes severe cognitive impairment from attitude to cause and effect ability, you know. And so even off of that alone, to just try to say, oh, they're not afraid of the police in Flint. Like, what does that mean, man? What does that mean? You know, to try to make a joke about the abuse of force from so-called law enforcement peace officers. That's low. You know what I'm saying? That's despicable. You see what I'm saying? But this is the kind of thing we always use, the threat of white violence or state violence against each other as a cudgel, because we don't have enough power to do either to enact a positive change or to be a positive influence in our communities. And so we internalize that, and we behave as though it's our fault. So I just want us to be mindful of that. You know, I wanted to add that to what you were saying.
No, that's valid. It's real valid. I think as we will touch on in this show today, like if we're thinking about the situation in Chicago where you see all of these shootings and all of this violence that's going on there, it's because of something. You know, there are certain ingredients that were created or stirred up to create the situation that we see today. And, you know, with that being said, I do want to give kudos to Marlon Watson and the folks out there doing the work on the ground, because they actually are working on a bill which would declare violence as a public health crisis. I think that bill is soon to be signed. It might have just been signed, because I know on Twitter he was on his way out to D.C. to discuss it on the federal scale. So definitely wanted to mention that as it ties to this, like to your comment, Stedman. Shit, it's not our fault that we're in the situation that we're in, but we oftentimes will point the finger at each other and say, well, you guys need to stop doing this and you need to stop doing that, without realizing none of those folks put themselves in that position. It was kind of forced upon them. So with that said, I think we could kind of transition into the main topic, right, guys?
Yeah, I think so. So what we're gonna roll into, I'm gonna hand it over to you, Ernest, to kind of open up this Black Panther element. This is where you guys want to get your notebooks out, because we're gonna start laying down the text for you.
Yep. So go ahead, Sted.
Well, and as always, we're going to try to post links in the description to any of the information we're posting. We got a couple documentaries we're going to be trying to show you some clips from. And so we want you to be able to use this information later. You know, we want you to be able to embolden yourself and empower yourself through knowledge to be able to navigate this cruel white world. Right? So description, check the description. All links and links to the videos, links to the notes and documentation are in the description.
That's right. We will get it out there. And if you're not already following, we just did create a new Facebook page. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/Freedmen's Collective, all one word. So if you go over there, you'll see the posts in real time that we share today during this show. So let's get into it, Ernest.
Yep. So just picking off where we left off, right, guys? We know what COINTELPRO is or was, but again, just to refresh the crowd, refresh the audience, COINTELPRO was an acronym for Counterintelligence Program, which was a series of covert and at time illegal project conducted by the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, aimed at surveying, infiltrating, discrediting, and disrupting domestic political organizations. Now, I'll leave it at that sentence, but we know some of these political organizations that they tie or try to target were civil rights movements, specifically Black American movements here, U.S. freedmen movements in the United States, just because, one of the beliefs of their head guys at the FBI, Edgar Hoover, was that, a Black Messiah would ultimately ruin the country or ruin America as it is. And so what we seen from the white power structure was that they took actions in the shadows, which they've probably already been doing for years now, right? They took actions in the shadows to set up a situation where Black America wouldn't be able to get a Messiah or wouldn't be able to truly unite around the message of justice and racial justice in America. I think like if, King or Malcolm X and a lot of other leaders that were assassinated were able to live, we would probably see a different Black America than the one we see today just by the strength of their impacts. But with that being said, I do want to lead off this first topic that, by stating that the Black Panther Party wasn't the only organization targeted by COINTELPRO.
They were not.
And not even just COINTELPRO, targeted by the state governments or local governments in those states, specifically police departments, DEA agents, and things like that. Like they weren't the only organization targeted. Go ahead, Steve. What were we going to say?
And the other, what they called it in the FBI, one of the videos we're going to talk about it, or at least the one of the people are going to talk about it. It's called the Black Desk. So it's like the FBI Black Desk file. So it's the Black Desk dealt specifically with Black organizations, whereas the counterintelligence program dealt with organizations from far right to far left, like the KKK and the hippies, the Black Panthers, etc. The Black Desk was specifically dealing with Black people or Black organizations.
Black Desk. I didn't know that. Okay. That's a shirt not to buy.
No. So yeah, like even with that, so perfect that you said that's there, right? So with the FBI having a Black Desk, it should be known or stated that America has been aware of the rise of Black organizations in this country by way of a program like COINTELPRO. What we know about Black gangs, which we'll definitely evolve into later on in this, is that a lot of Black gangs were originally founded or created on the idea of community strength and making sure that certain communities are protected against either racial harms or other communities who had ill intent. And ultimately, some of these gangs, they call gangs, with keep in mind they were organizations as well, but they became gangs when the government started using the media to classify them as something other than a criminal enterprise like what the mafia had going on in America, right? So what they ended up doing was calling them gangs when there was an introduction of drugs and guns and crime in these communities at a higher level. And on top of that,
which is ironic because how did those get there?
Yeah, yes, and even on top of that, right? We know drugs aren't manufactured in America, specifically like cocaine or heroin, or the drugs that would be used to create those type of things. So, there's definitely some involvement there where we could easily say, drugs and the government's involvement in the Black community probably has been prevalent since the 60s. I think at that time we were dealing with, massive outbreak of like heroin addictions in our communities because, opioids or whatever being smuggled in through the Vietnam War. We know about these things, right? What we don't know is the true effect of these things and how it has played a part in every single Black family in America, right? So, with that being said, Stebbin, I don't know if you want to jump in and definitely start off with your video, because I know if we keep going, we're going to start talking about some of these things where let's give specific examples of the government's involvement or things like that as far as this specific topic.
Okay, so this video it's let's see, what is it called again? It's how the FBI sabotaged Black. What is it? How the FBI sabotaged Black America. And the video is a 50-minute documentary. I don't know, that's what I call it. And it has interviews of different prominent Black figures. looks at the FBI, the CIA, and it looks at even at least one FBI informant who actually actively worked to infiltrate black groups and destroy them. So the first clip, it's long because it breaks down the FBI, specifically J. Edgar Hoover's role, and the CIA, and it also has some footage of the church committee hearing. So it's about a 10-minute long clip. We can kind of, let's just play some of it, and then if I'll try to get you to speed it up a bit, but let's just try to play a little bit of that, because I think it'd be really good to try to watch that 10-minute clip. But I know we have a... Yeah. Right. It's just at the beginning. We're crunched for time, though, so...
Yep. All right. Let's get it.
As far back as the 1920s, when he began as FBI director, Hoover had gone after persons like Marcus Garvey. Garvey's organization, the Universal Negro Improvement Association, had a membership numbering in the millions, and somehow Hoover found this threatening and worthy of surveillance and undermining attempts. Garvey's influence had been international and had drawn world attention to America's treatment of black people. Paul Robeson was another who was viewed by Hoover as an enemy. This reporter has personally examined thousands of FBI, CIA, and other U.S. government agency documents that were kept on Paul Robeson. Robeson, like Garvey, had an international audience at his command, and he used that platform to denounce racism in the United States.
Most importantly, however, were the questions raised by the State Department as to my political opinion. Here's a question of whether one who wants to sing and act can have, as a citizen, political opinion. And in attacking me, they suggested that when I was abroad, I spoke out against injustices to the Negro people in the United States. I certainly did. And the Supreme Court Justice just ruled, Judge Warren, in the segregation cases, that world opinion had a lot to do with that ruling, that our children, Negro children, can go to school like anybody else in the South. I'm very proud to have been a part of directing world opinion to precisely that condition. The second, that I fight for the independence of the colonial peoples of Africa. Bandung, the colored peoples of the world assembled and made it clear that nobody is going to tell them what to do. They're going to have the independence. I'm proud of that.
When the 60s came, many factions of the civil rights movement had developed the same international perspective.
Those of us living in the United States who see ourselves as, and who are in fact, descendants of the Africans who were brought to this country, who were enslaved, and who were rebelling and revolting now against our oppressive condition. And we are concerned about Africa. We see Africa as our motherland, and we feel that we have a responsibility to speak with as much passion as any other African on this issue. The United States government says that change must come in South Africa through peaceful means. That same government has over 500,000 troops in Vietnam fighting not white people, but brown Vietnamese.
So it is small wonder that the civil rights movement was also subjected to heavy attack by Hoover. Billions of government dollars were spent in this direction. Many of these activities were not only unwarranted, but of questionable legality. The congressional hearings into the assassination of Dr. King bore this out. 2 FBI agents testified before a Senate committee chaired by Senator Frank Church.
I'm trying to find out what it was that impelled some part of the FBI to pursue Martin Luther King with such an obsession. And what I understood that answer to be is, first of all, it was not any suspicions of the commission of a federal crime. None of the literature showed up a single suggestion that Martin Luther King had committed or was about to commit a crime. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir, but at this point, much of what was being done did involve challenges to local laws. And there is a very strong suggestion that King was seen as rallying the lawbreakers and would-be lawbreakers, albeit for a cause that sounded pure. Looking now in terms of, if we look at what might have gotten the Bureau started, if we remember at the same time, he is extremely critical of the Bureau's own law enforcement efforts. We see throughout these documents and the New Left documents that it is taboo to criticize the Bureau and particularly the director.
Well, was he ever charged with fomenting violence? Did he ever participate in violence? Was it ever alleged that he was about to be violent?
That was the very opposite of his philosophy, Senator.
So that it was neither the fear of commission of a crime or the commission of violence. Was there any serious charge that he himself was a communist?
No such charge ever was made.
So that what was left then was a decision on the part of some persons or person within the FBI that he should nevertheless be pursued.
And replaced.
And the basis for that apparently was political. The decision that he was dangerous or potentially dangerous to someone's notion of what this country should be doing, and a further theory that the FBI possessed the ability to enter into this field and to investigate and to intimidate and seek to neutralize and indeed replace a civil rights leader that they thought to be politically unacceptable. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct. All right. And the tactics they used apparently had no end.
We can pause here if you want for now.
Surveillance.
Yeah.
Like I said, they're long clips because we still got about, But what I was trying to do, I'm trying to establish just to found. Like I said, I said this before. I believe it was on the COINTELPRO episode. What if the FBI, if the United States government saw fit to pursue Martin Luther King in this way, what will they do for any of us? A man who stood for peace, nonviolent. He said, did he ever foment any kind of violence? No, that was against his creed. Was he ever charged with being a communist? Which this really gets us further to the reason why the CIA and the FBI have invested so heavily in global imperialism, and really why they've allowed the black community to bear the brunt of suffering in the pursuit of this imperialism. There was toward the end of that clip, it was Dick Gregory, there was Andrew Young, there was Ralph David Abernathy, and they all are basically saying that they don't agree with the findings that, there was some lone gunman who killed Martin Luther King. That don't fit any kind of truth that they can see based on their experiences. Now the next clip, I still won't try to play it all, but at 10:40, it's they deal with Malcolm X, and so this just gives you a different perspective. Martin was always considered the peaceful, nonviolent version, and Malcolm was always considered the aggressor. The hate produced was something they used to describe him, and so you can see even him. He was pursued by the same FBI and the police, in order that he could be stopped and that the black Muslim movement could be stopped.
So we'll go ahead and play this clip here.
Since he got out of prison back in 1953. As he rose to national prominence as the black Muslims' chief spokesman, he became aware that he was under close watch.
Our desire, our prayer, that we can have a peaceful and intelligent rally here this afternoon. But at the same time, we see that they have surrounded us with many of their own agents in uniform and out of uniform.
That surveillance escalated into the infiltration of the Nation of Islam.
Personal frailties were played upon, jealousy arose, and Malcolm was ultimately ousted from that organization. This caused an intense climate of rivalry that set the stage for Malcolm's assassination in February of 1965.
He was really declared a hypocrite at the time. And because of some of the things that he was saying in regards to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, may God be pleased with him, a strong position was really taken against him. The ministers began to speak out against the things that Malcolm was saying in regards to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, accusations that he had made about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, He had accused the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, for instance, of fathering children and etc. And you must understand that at that time, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, to the Muslims then, was held in such high reverence as you would even think of any prophet being held in high reverence. And this is the kind of love and admiration that the Muslims at that time had for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So when Minister Malcolm began to say those things, it was taken as an outright lie. I would say that, take for instance, one time in the Muhammad Speaks at that time, the newspaper printed a big article concerning the chief hypocrite. And it actually had a picture of Malcolm's head, rolling or bouncing down the street at that time. And, the way that picture is depicted, he has little horns on his head and things like this here. So indirectly, I would say that a very, very strong position was taken against him.
Yes, he's immoral. You can't take 9 teenage
women. You can fast forward here.
Seduce them and give them babies.
Leon Davis and myself could see that Will would fire his shotgun that Leon and myself
rewind it just a little bit.
And then right behind us, we would drift into the Audubon. If indeed there was a search, then we could never enter. There was no search, so we drifted in just like we had hoped to. Leon Davis and myself took seats down front on the left-hand side. Benjamin and William, who carried the sort of shotgun, sat right behind us, and we sat somewhat in the back or almost in the middle. And our plan was, as soon as the brother came out to speak, that we would throw the smoke bomb to make a distraction. And that Will would fire his shotgun, and that Leon and myself, we would fire ours, and then just break through the door.
As in Dr. King's assassination, a police superior has trouble with the truth. He tells reporters that 2 suspects were arrested at the Audubon. Later, official police reports say that 1 was arrested.
Now, we can pause here.
Also, listen.
And so, this is one of the issues, too. So what they say is originally, and this is in the previous about Dr. King, and it has more relevancy today, too, with respect to Malcolm. They say that King was actually supposed to be in a white hotel, right? He wasn't supposed to be at the Lorraine Hotel. He was supposed to be in he was at a white hotel, and the news got out that he was at a white hotel, and then they moved him to the Lorraine. And they said that the Memphis police, for some reason, got rid of his security detail. And they show a picture of a Memphis police officer, a retired officer, I believe, at this time. And he says that that they got rid of Martin's security detail. Then they talk to the chief of the Memphis police, and he says there's no such thing that happened, whatever. Now, with Malcolm's situation, you heard the brother, I guess I call him brother for the desire not to call him something worse, who killed Malcolm, said, we bought our guns and our smoke bombs, and if anybody was going to check us, we wouldn't have been able to do it, but nobody was there. So just maybe within the last 6 months, there was an article, and you've heard about it, the NYPD is investigating, that they took security detail from Malcolm, right? The guys who were supposed to be securing Malcolm were arrested because other undercover police had kind of coerced them into committing crimes, not like by gunpoint, but like persuaded them to commit crimes and then got them arrested. So it was 3 of them that were gone. And the one of the retired officers wrote a letter, and it was in the, I believe it was in the New York Times. I'll find it and put it in the description. But so this has a greater relevance. You see that the police are doing what they're doing, and if you let that clip play, if you would have let it play a bit, what you would have heard is they said that there were, when they asked the police chief, were there any officers present? He says there were no uniformed officers present. And so the narrator says, but does that mean there were any who weren't in uniform? And so there's just it's a constant battle, you know. Even though I joke about my internet, I'm half joking because it is true that if there are any movements for justice and equality and freedom, not just for black people, but for all people, really, but because I focus on black people who have, you know, we focus on black people who have been determined to be a bottom caste in America, they come get us. You know, they do come infiltrate us. 1907, it's a quick, small clip of Dick Gregory.
Hey,
just a quick small clip.
Dick Gregory?
Yeah.
All right, let's see Dick Gregory.
A quick clip.
All right, let's give him a swirl.
If we would like to believe that the FBI would do all these viciousness and all of these things to an individual and would stop short of killing him, then we are out of our mind. In America today, if we believe the CIA would deal with foreign assassinations and would not consider it at home, that's like saying the mafia runs crooked gambling tables in South America, but honest ones in America. It just ain't true.
So that's it for that.
Wow.
And this is the narrator, but that's it. That's it, right? If you expect me to believe that the FBI and the CIA are running assassinations all around the world, which we're going to discuss,
wow,
and they're not going to do that here at home.
And that's powerful too, because
it is.
like you said, like I stated earlier in the clip, said this was a program that the FBI pumped billions of dollars into. So I'm gonna say it like this: King, X, whoever you wanted to line up, they honestly did not stand a chance at all. And that's the real truth. That somebody was in the back room playing chess this whole time and saying we gonna pump these operations in, and eventually when we want to, we can make it happen. That's what they knew.
Right. They have the whole apparatus.
Yeah.
And in the Church Commission, well, yeah, but in the Church Commission, they mention how very specific instances caused them to want to attack Martin Luther King harder. J. Edgar Hoover was more upset when Martin Luther King was awarded the Peace Prize, right? He was more upset when he did the March on Washington and he spoke at the Lincoln Memorial. All these instances, J. Edgar Hoover took it personal that Martin Luther King was trying to get justice. And like we saw in the previous episode, J. Edgar Hoover said, justice is incidental to law and order. What did we say last time? They don't want you to complain about nothing. They want you to be quiet. Just be quiet. Be quiet. As long as the machine runs smoothly, that's our concern. We just want a smooth machine. We want to crush you and slowly.
Right.
But we don't want you to complain about it, right?
Please don't complain.
So do not complain. Your life rests on it. You know what I'm saying?
They say
so
laws
at the 20
they say laws are made for the weak to follow and for the strong to break. And if we look at our government as an example, they break every single one of their laws because they asked to follow that.
That's so. You know what? Hold that. You say for the weak to follow and the strong to break. I think about it. I used to say, and I still say, you know, in a sense, rules and laws are made for those who are not going to follow them anyway, to be the tripping line to hang them with. The idea that they want you to stay within a certain framework of behavior, they give you that line so that they can use that to delineate and obfuscate why they really are trying to get rid of you. They're getting rid of you not because you broke the line or the law. It's because you were probably in the process of doing something they don't want you to do, regardless if it was written down or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we see that just.
Go ahead.
we see that in the application of drug laws, right? Which is going to be our next big thing. But we see examples of that in our criminal justice system on a daily basis. That there is a set of laws for one group, and then there's a set of directives for another. You know what I'm saying? And so that's how America works. And this is, I mean, even when you look at the situation of citizenship, and you look at descendants of freedmen in America. Right? In America, your citizenship is only as valuable as what you can do with it. So when you have money, your citizenship is great. You could be American, you could be British or Spanish or French or Canadian if you have money. You could be Mexican if you have money. If you don't have money, America don't have no use for you. And the problem is you can't send us anywhere because this is where we are from. So you're stuck with us, and they can't figure out a way to get rid of us. They've tried everything they could to get rid of us, and nothing has worked. You can. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was gonna say, you got more clips, right? Like a few more.
Yeah. So with this Darther Perry, I kind of just start at 2210. Just play a little bit. Yeah, that's the long one. It's the long one.
Let's do a couple minutes of this one.
So not 10.
Yeah.
Not 2210. Not 20. That's Eldridge Cleaver. You could listen to what he says about infiltration, but I'd rather you hear Darther Perry. He's actually an FBI informant. So
where you
I'd rather you listen to him. Right here.
Right here. Right here. Where we're at now.
Yep, okay. Start right there.
And they very quickly filled the gap. It took them about a year to do it.
In the summer of 1978, I interviewed a man who worked as an informer for the FBI during the 1960s. His name is Darther Perry, also known as Ed Riggs, also known as Bill Perry, also known as Othello.
How were you paid?
The pay was always in cash. Cash, and you would sign a card. It would go like this. A rendezvous or a drop-off point would be picked out either by yourself or the agent. You would meet the agent there, and usually it would be in a vehicle. You get in the vehicle, he would hand you the money. He would tell you first to count the money. He would tell you the amount while you counted it. If the amount was there, he would then bring out a card. On that card would be for the week of such and such. In other words, the week was dated. So-and-so has been paid the amount of. Then you would sign the card, and then the agent would sign the card. The reason for this is that if all of a sudden the IRS became very interested about where you were getting all this extra money from, you could always tell them to go back to the Bureau, and the Bureau would have your cards on file.
I see. Were there such things as bonuses?
Oh, yes.
What were they paid for?
Bonuses were paid for, suppose while you were meeting with, or you were at a meeting with Bobby Seals, Chulai of the Red Army happened to come to the meeting too, which is something which would be a new development. That's bonus time.
In other words, a hot piece of information.
Hot piece, very hot piece.
Did you ever suffer pangs of conscience?
Quite a few times. Quite a few times. I still suffer pangs of conscience. I suffer from the fact that a lot of people trusted me and I misused that trust. I suffer from the fact that a lot of information that I gave out was the undoing of certain groups or certain people. I suffer from the fact that I'm on the run constantly. I have no real life to speak of.
You have no family life, really? You have a wife?
No, I don't have a wife. I do have a child. I can't see her that often. I have to stay away from them because once I come around, the Bureau shows up and harassment starts. I have very few close personal friends, no one to really confide in. It's like being on the outside of a glass jar and everything is happening inside the jar, but you're on the outside. You can see it happening, but you can't participate.
Why have you decided to talk to me?
For the simple reason, I think this information should be getting out, should be put out to the public. I think not only Black people, but everyone should become aware of what your so-called law enforcement agencies do to so-called enforce the law. Because between you, myself, and the audience, I've seen more felons in law enforcement than I have in prison.
Many would say, well, look, you yourself just got through saying that the DLA was involved in criminal activity. What's wrong with wanting to put them in prison?
Hey, Darby, yeah.
I would
appreciate it. Yeah, man. Like, I don't know. When we get statements like this, we think back to Lakeith Stanfield's character in Messiah, and this is what the Black community knows about the FBI, specifically about the activities of law enforcement agencies. Like, this isn't.
Yeah.
It's a known secret, but it's almost like white America hasn't given this any credence. You know what I'm saying? Politicians, no credence, no leeway. This was an official operation of the U.S. government, and shit. Ultimately, for us, this was the checkmate move. You know, this set on a whole onslaught of other conditions. Like, just think about this: when they got rid of King and Malcolm X and all of these positive forces in our community, at the same time, when there were other organizations sprouting up, they took efforts to cripple those organizations, to cripple those efforts, and then they took Blacks out of the political process all in all, just by crippling what we call our neighborhoods, now known as the hoods.
Yeah.
Through systematic targeting, like let's take the jobs, let's throw in drugs, let's kill off the best leaders they got, let's kill off the gang leaders they got, or at least take them to jail and prison. You know, if the FBI or the police was doing these type of activities to honest organizations, imagine the fires they caused amongst Black gangs in these communities where they thinking whatever they thinking beyond that they could do more than Martin Luther King or these folks. Like, they probably was easy meat, you know what I'm saying? Easy pickings, you know what I'm saying? Like for real. Like that's just the facts of this thing. When you look at it, like, I don't know, at one point we probably had over 1,000 Black youth organizations across the US and prominent cities. And what they did was took all of those orgs, twisted them up, and you got a 10-year time frame where now most of these orgs are focused on what they call criminal activity. But they didn't start that way. And the original leaders or founders of these movements didn't start out like that either. And so it's almost like, did they replace these folks? Did they replace those folks and then plant who they wanted to? Like people like this guy who we just listened to, Dr. Perry. Like, you know, if they could plant somebody like this, you don't know what organizations or people he helped take down. But just imagine it being an army of these people being paid by the Black Deaths, being financed and bankrolled by billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars. That's what we're dealing with.
Well, when we talk about all these things and people continue to fail to process the depth and the intricacy, they also like to escape from any hint of these things by imagining a world where they are totally out of the ability of controlling the destiny of our community. And when they use that idea that they can't affect change because of this real history to escape from doing the work that is necessary right now, we fail to see the power of even more people being available right now to us than what was then. Go ahead, Stephen.
Coming in a little lag, Stead.
Yeah, he's a little breaky. So,
so I do want to point out one thing, Stephen. When you come back in, you could probably just I'll let you cut off. But it's ironic that during and I just want to state this, like, so after King and all of these folks got done away with, we seen what the Black people were going to be ended up like Black Americans were ended up getting into when we had organizations like the Black Panther Party. But we've seen the government systematically break that organization apart, characterize it as whatever they wanted to. And then, that ultimately had effects on other organizations. I think in Messiah, it showed the Black Panther Party was working with other local organizations, not gangs, but just other organizations that were Black run. And these guys, they stood up to white supremacists and things like that in the streets. And they had certain principles and characters about them. Just imagine after Fred Hampton, the government said, now, what are we going to do with these people? And they came up with a plan and executed effectively on that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the whole system of drugs coming into Black communities, knowing that when we had these great leaders and these great organizations running and flourishing, it would have been hard for those things to flourish, right? Like it would have been hard for them to prosper. And so it's almost like you take down these dominoes, then you got these little pawns in the back that you just got to remove off the board. And I feel like that's what they did with like Black gangs in America. They may have infiltrated them or maybe not. Let's just say these people tired of poverty and they like the new system that got set up. Maybe they have dibbled and dabbled in this underworld enterprise. Like we already stated in COINTELPRO Part 1, the CIA was involved in the crack cocaine epidemic, like we're going to cover in here later on. There's been operatives coming out discussing this. There's proof of the Nicaraguan Contra trade that we all know about. We all know Reagan's stance on this, on these things. And it's almost like we just got to keep refreshing the people and making them aware of what's really going on. And, I think it's really ironic that during the rise of Black criminal or enterprises, or what they call now gangs, that there was a complete absence of all white criminal enterprises, from the Irish mob, the Italian mob, organizations that we know the FBI had to set up laws like the RICO Act just to capture these folks because they were operating in the extreme depths and shadows. But what we see is during the rise of the Black criminal enterprise or gangs, the CIA and the FBI and the police's focus has shifted from these white immigrant criminal enterprises that once existed unto these Black now criminals, and there has been an over-policing of their areas. The RICO Act has been abused, amongst many Black organizations in America. Not just
RICO charges, man. RICO charges. That's common.
So it's like when we think about this game that the government got played or laid out, it's a strategy, and it's one that will always keep its original oppressed class down specifically.
It's like a game of Monopoly to them, man. They trying to play go. Every time they go around the board and they pass go, they put 2 and 12 of our people out. And they trying to collect all the houses because they got all the property. Every board, as a pawn on the Monopoly board, every box you land on is owned by somebody white, owned by the government, owned by someone who benefited from our enslavement, from our oppression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got something to add on there? Because I was gonna say we could probably switch it up to the second topic instead and let you lead off. But if you
got talk about Nicaraguans and stuff, man.
Yeah. Because I would say, just to recap the 70s,
or if it's not owned, you just can't buy it.
Yeah. You breaking in and out, but no, like I was saying, like just to recap the 70s, right? Like we coming off King Malcolm X assassination. We coming off the Vietnam War in America, really imprisoning Black folks for taking a stance against saying we don't need to fight against them because you guys are still fighting against us. And so they arrested Muhammad Ali for taking a true stance against injustice in America. It showed us how they were willing to operate. They overdrafted Blacks during the Vietnam War, right? So we participated in that to our disadvantage because we weren't even still given the full opportunity to participate in American society as citizens. America gets to focusing on the feminist movement, which allows them to make it a gender issue, not a race issue. They throw race in a garbage bag. Later on in the 70s, you got the industrialization next boom, which is globalization, and politicians seeking to start these trade agreements, which ultimately moves the jobs from America to China, which begins this. Every time you look at something and say made in China, it began that process
It's
so not to say that white Americans and black Americans weren't working in America, manufacturing. There was a time like my grandma and my dad or them say things used to say made in America. Shit.
That was an era, huh? That was like an episode. That was a season. Now it cannot say made in America unless you want it to be something extra. Like when made in America just meant we made it for the sake that we made it. Now made in America is the product itself. I heard a phrase on a interview I watched about a guy who makes audio equipment. I heard a phrase that he uttered about a few days ago. And they were asking him, hey, man, why does your audio equipment, why is it so expensive? And do you have anything to say about why it's so expensive and it's not affordable for average people? He said, listen, today, price is the product. Price is what's being sold. When you think about the things that drive us to the market, when we think about America's entire mantra of how it operates, the levels of consumerism and capitalism, price is what people are buying. They go into stores to get whatever that object is. No matter how well it performs, they need it at a price point. So when you think about that, America's move to the top has always been on the backs of whoever can give it what it wanted cheapest, from enslaving our ancestors all the way through having China make goods. But you know what they will not do? They will let China bully them, this country, and fight with China in cyber warfare and trade agreements and sanctions. We're going back and forth with China. China just hacked up the damn election.
Yeah.
And they're over there playing tit for tat with China, but with us, it's totally off the board. They used us and they threw us away. So when we think about made in America, what it used to be, it reminded me of this whole story. It used to be just standard old fare. It used to be everyday thing. Yeah. And that's just what you put on there. But nowadays, when it says it's made in America, that's a premium label. That's to say that we brought it back. Like we're doing it special. It's like how Apple says designed in California. You know, it's like all that. And it's like, man, like this should not be something special. But, you know, I'm sorry. Let me get off of that.
A renewed interest in like you said, like this, it meant something back then. I think that's a good political point. I think any politician to do well to bring up, you know what I'm saying? Like, the America first, or even like from when we think about it from an economic standpoint, like you said, America has done well with profiting off of people who are willing to give it less or do less for it in order for them to get a lot out of it. Like, you know, we see that with the globalization and all of these exports, imports, and then we see that again with even immigration and cheap labor, you know, still persistent in modern day times, right? So you know, that's just I'm getting a little bit off. I know Stedman still isn't in. I'm wondering if he probably called in or not.
Yeah, I did send him a note to call in to the show. He can call in through the line. And all y'all can call in who are watching live right now. You can call in. The number's below. Boop, boop, boop. You see it down there. Make sure you get on the line if you got your opinion to drop on us. But listen, though. Here's the thing. Crack. Yeah. Right? Crack in the neighborhoods. Again, part of the sabotage machine. Biden, that's who we got right now, right?
Yeah.
What was his position?
Father of the crime bill since, or active participant in all crime bill creation since the 76. So, you know, Biden's stance on crack. So let's get it. Like, let's just get the people with a, you know, I know a lot of Black Americans watching this show. Crack cocaine, definitely the rock version of cocaine, which was to the government's eyes a worse product. What we could say is that we have seen the damages of this modified version of cocaine, but it doesn't mean that you take a stance and say that this drug is worse, so we're going to give you guys all worse, you know, I guess more severe penalties,
right,
utilizing it than we would give any other American user of drugs, from heroin to cocaine. So what we seen was the interesting thing about crack was that it allowed Black Americans who were drug dealers to enter this illegal trade, this legal market that immigrants already participated in for years, right? So just
to square this up for people, crack just made cocaine affordable.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's it. That's it. So it was like we can't really sell something where they, like, let's think about cocaine. This was an American delicacy for the elite. And you've seen it in magazines, you see it in the 70s pop movies, the idea of it, the ecstasy around it. I think when you actually go back to watch errors, like in America, where they go over best of the 70s, best of the 80s, they will cover this drug because of the impact and influence it had in elite spaces. But what you would know is that in the poorest of places, this isn't a drug that's going to be able to attract buyers because obviously no one has the money to buy this expensive drug. Like you're talking about, and I never took it, but I'm saying from the movies, you're talking about like one line of something costing equivalent to $50 or $100.
Right.
So black people ain't have that type of money. Whereas crack, it was a cheaper option, maybe about $10 for something this big, right? But I say all of this to say, we're talking about an era where there was a complete disappearance of black leaders because of the government's involvement. At the same time, in Compton, which was linked to this massive drug trade that was expanded in America, specifically with crack cocaine, they learned this secret ingredient by debasing the rock or doing whatever they had to do to cocaine to alter its form.
Yeah.
In the black community, they figured out this way to alter this drug and sell it in mass across across the U.S. and make black millionaires overnight or in a week. The interesting thing is this drug and its sale in America was used not only to prop up shadow agencies across the globe, like when we talk about the Contra Nicaraguan affairs. What we have is a three-way drug trade where you got the Reagan administration and the CIA obtaining guns from other individuals, then basically we got the CIA setting up a war in Central America or in South America. But in order to fund this war, what they did was, because Congress didn't approve it, so obviously agencies can operate at the will of the executive office. So what you had is the CIA working with the president or other agencies to find a way to fund this war. And the way they decided to do that was that opiates or cocaine was in mass in these South America countries because of the plants that they're able to grow there. They ship this up to California. From California, black Americans take this drug, create crack with it, and expand profits, only to buy these very same drugs from the American government, who's supposed to be against, the detriment of U.S. citizens, buying these drugs from the U.S. government so that the U.S. government can use that money to buy guns to give to the Contras, which allows them to continue to fight the war. The Contras give us drugs, we give them guns, but the black American community is almost the expense of this operation, right? Because these are all the consumers of these drugs and these products in order to create this illegal market.
No, but so the question then is, what interference or what hands did?
Backstep?
No, he's not. What hands did America have in South America? I mean, did the U.S. interfere? Like, there's a whole line of stories between South and Central America of U.S. interference and coups and fueling.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to hear a lot of what you said. I don't know what you covered or if you covered much of the.
So yeah, what we just did, Stedman, was just covered the.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but you coming in late. I'm gonna use the chat.
All right. So, anywho, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna show a clip real quick of the crime bill hearing, because we got to bring this all 360. People talking about, well, what does this mean to today, Darvell? You guys are just talking and talking and talking. But I mean, the honest truth is, like, at the end of the day, we got the same people who had their hands in all of this still running the government. These same architects are sitting right here and y'all are supporting them. And then you act like you don't know they ain't the people, we can't never win, and this and that, and the applesauce and the third. And I'm like, we done told you. But that's the thing. People are just, the system is so good. It is so good. It's like getting someone on crack and they don't know that they're addicted to crack.
Or like crack it didn't have any laws outside of what was the cocaine law. So let's make something specific to lock these people up longer.
Yeah, exactly. So they always had a way to ensure that there was a latching mechanism that puts someone back into the place where they came from. So this isn't the best clip, but I'm going to share it with the people right now of this unfortunate speech. There's just a small part of it that this person recorded from 93. So, and I'm going to also bring Stedman in. He is on the line.
Cool.
Let's see here. Okay. Should have moved him over. There he is.
Yeah, so we're going to do this again, huh?
Can you hear us?
We knew it was going
to be. I hear you.
We got a live guest on the line.
You know, that's what I'm saying, dude. It's ridiculous, man.
But no, we
as cool as I was last week, for me to be having these problems there's nothing you can tell me that makes this make sense. This don't happen when I'm doing anything else with my internet.
Hey, but we covered the gist of what was going on in the 80s, the introduction to crack cocaine, what was crack.
Okay.
We also covered the three-way trade they had set up with the crack, Contras, the weapons, and the money that Black Americans were basically feeding to the government to pay for guns and feed that to the Contras. So Darvell was about to play a clip of Biden and his crime bill just to show a little bit about, the crime bills and then specifically the actions the government was taking despite their awareness of their own agencies in these activities. So, this is kind of what they were doing to its citizens.
And note that they turned the comments off on this one,
Yeah.
Them boys know that this ain't no good. Your boy Biden, y'all was riding for Biden. Now he in there, he passing all sorts of bills for people who don't look like us, and we've been here the longest outside of Native Americans. Come on, people. All right, let's get in this.
I sat with him, not with his attorney general. He wanted 100,000 policemen. He does not.
I mean, hold on. He said, who is he?
Mute right now when after you play it.
Patience. And he unfortunately doesn't need a lot of sleep. Sometimes literally, and I say this on the record, as late as 11:30 at night to discuss why I wasn't moving quicker on the Biden crime bill from before. I sat with him, not with his attorney general. He wanted 100,000 policemen. He does not view this as a social issue as opposed to trying to bring peace and security to the streets. As governor of the state of Arkansas, he presided over, as governor, the execution of individuals within the state and the death penalty. He supports the death penalty. He is the fellow who insisted that I bump this up from initially to when I said, where are we going to get the money? He said, well, all I know is I want 100,000 cops. I made that commitment. He had endorsed the Biden crime bill as a candidate when he ran. He is the one who talks about the need for stiffer penalties. So notwithstanding the fact some of the old Democrats and former presidents who were Democrats before Carter, I suspect, I don't know who we're talking about here, but in the old days, it is true, when Richard Nixon, or who are potential time offenders who haven't gotten, I yield myself an additional 3 minutes, who in fact are people who are getting themselves into the crime stream for the first time, that they should be diverted from the system. So I hope this crime bill, when it passes, the Biden-Hatch crime bill, as it becomes law, God willing, I hope that we will have ended once and for all this notion that is a hangover from the 60s, that somehow Democrats are weak on crime and Democratic presidents are weak on crime and Republicans are tough on crime. The truth is, every major crime bill since 1976 that's come out of this Congress, every minor crime bill has had the name of the Democratic senator from the state of Delaware, Joe Biden, on that bill, and has had a majority vote of the Democratic members of the United States Senate on the bill. So one of the things I want to do in addition to ending the crime is end the political carnage that goes on when we talk about crime. Crime doesn't matter or not whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask what made them do this. They must be taken off the street.
You're what, 46th president?
Oh boy, whose man's is that?
He said he don't care about what's
your boy said every crime bill since '76 has had his name on it and was bragging about it.
Democratic senators supporting, right? Like, damn. Like so let's understand this politically, right? We got politicians working against our interests actively through the creation of these crime bills and not giving a damn or rat's ass about what white supremacy systems, what covert agencies played a part in creating this condition in their neighborhoods, although it didn't exist in the 60s, like to the extent that it did after the 60s. So despite those things, we don't give a damn about what it might take to repair the Negro because we don't want them killing, like he said, he criminalized this almost better than the media could ever do it. You know what I'm saying? He said everything besides monkey killers. Like that's what I heard. You get what I'm saying? Like every racist trope you could use against a black American. He said, "Take on my sons." Did he say hit his wife on the head?
Yeah, bang his grandma upside the head with a pot pan. I don't know.
Hey, but this is the thing. His son is a crackhead. His son is a crackhead.
He got no cocaine money.
He had it, but hey,
he blew it all and he had to downgrade, huh?
No, I think he just will.
You see what I'm saying? Those rules don't apply to him. Like you just talked about. The rules don't apply to him. It don't apply to his family, right? Mm-hmm. When he talked about how come black people were so bad off, it's another clip where he says single parent homes. But his son got a stripper pregnant and that baby's going to grow up in a single parent home. But that don't apply to him. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? And see, you have to ask, do they think black people are stupid? And by that I mean Republicans and Democrats. Are we stupid? Right? Mm-hmm. Because you put a man like this in office. Mm-hmm. They think we're stupid. Or are we proving them right?
Proving them right for sure. Yeah. There's nothing you could do with this, like this type of clip. You know what I'm saying? Like he got multiple of these, right?
Oh so,
man,
you know that's multiple. He stands by every bit of it. He's not here for you to try to take that from him.
Mm-hmm. Now, keeping in mind,
he said every year that he's been in Congress, every crime bill they passed have had his name on it. Imagine that.
Keeping in mind, this was in '93.
Every year that he's been in Congress and a crime bill has passed, his name has been on it. Now, like I said, I don't know how deep y'all went into the Iran-Contra situation, but the CIA was allowing drugs to come into America, into the black community, to subsidize U.S. imperialism because they were not, in '81, Congress, it was called the Boland Amendment. Congress was not allowed to give money to foreign militaries.
Okay.
The Boland Amendment, B-O-L-A-N-D. Mm-hmm. And so the Boland Amendment, it disallowed the U.S. government from giving money to the Contras. The Contras were a group of people who were against the Sandinista government, which was a socialist Cuban-backed government who had taken power after they got rid of the previous U.S.-backed authoritarian in '79. And so what they did, in order to raise funds for the Contra military, because the Contras were a group of guerrilla military groups. It wasn't just one group of people. They sold drugs the Nicaraguans acted as a go-between between the Colombians, Pablo Escobar's most famous Colombian drug dealer, and the black gangs in L.A. through a man, last name Menendez. His full name was, well, let me see. His last name is Menendez. It's a weird name for me to pronounce. I took Spanish in school, but don't hold me to it. But and another guy last name Blandon. Okay, they lived in the San Francisco Bay Area. They had businesses, cars, houses. The FBI knew they were there. The CIA knew they were there. Right? When they were being investigated, one of the instances they talk in the articles. Let me backtrack. In '96, a reporter for the San Jose Mercury News wrote a series of articles called The Dark Alliance. His name was Gary Webb. Okay? He published these.
Do you want me to share the screenshot?
You can share them. I'm not going to be able to see them to
go ahead.
Really know what's going on. But Gary Webb wrote these articles exposing the CIA involvement in the crack boom in L.A. L.A. at one point in time was known as the crack capital of America. And like Ernest said earlier, they don't grow cocaine in California. They grow a lot of stuff in California. They don't grow cocaine. So how did the cocaine get here? Any small, poor black town in America, how do the drugs get there? Like you said earlier with Frank Lucas. How does Frank Lucas get allowed, and I said allowed, to bring heroin in the bodies of Vietnam soldiers who died? How does he get allowed to do that? How does he get allowed to poison his community from thousands of miles away? But if any of you try to go right now and get on the airplane and you bring in a bottle of juice, you can't do it.
Even worse than that.
Go and try to bring in a full bottle of water and see if you get through. And these people are bringing in pounds and tons of drugs.
You mentioned that how they bringing it through, right? Like, think about this. There was a time when you could just bring pounds of cocaine through the American airport. There was no what we seeing right now with TSA and all of that. You get what I'm saying? This was just what it was, and this is how you had these stories of
no dogs, huh?
You had these stories of Miami drug lords going to Colombia or to these places and coming back on a plane and making massive money by passing off these drugs into like the American economy. So one thing I did want to point out was crack, despite how harmful and destructive it was to the Black American community. Think about all of the economic booms that single drug created in America by allowing white Americans to create these crime bills and then at the same time create millions or thousands of jobs specifically for their people as it relates to the system of mass incarceration, the legal system, and specifically law enforcement, right? This is including FBI, DEA, you name whatever agency they got, and this one drug allowed them to expand each of those tenfold to, like he said, Joe Biden, 100,000 officers, right? And we know what the demographic makeup of these groups is. So just think about, besides the Contra war, they were like, this is two birds, one stone. We could still get away with what we was just doing with convict leasing or X, Y, and Z, just in a new way. You know what I'm saying? Like this is how massive or how brilliant the system was that these white supremacists ultimately created. Like it feeds into itself at multiple intersections.
Right. And this is the thing too. I don't know if y'all brought it up because my situation is crazy. But even with money laundering in the United States was not illegal until 1986. So that means all the mobsters, when you talk to, I heard you talk about the Irish mob, the Jewish mob, the Italian mob, right? All the money that they made, even the Kennedys. Now you're looking at the Kennedys, the money they made, they deny it, but the money they made bootlegging alcohol, their great-great-grandfather, and I'm talking about like John F. Kennedy or great-grandfather or grandfather, whoever, to him, was able to take that money that he made bootlegging alcohol and turn that into legitimate business, invest in the stock market, open businesses, and try to improve your situation. and their family is reaping the benefits of that even today. That not so for black people, right? At 86, during the crack boom, even this is something really minor. But do you know how old you have to be to rent a car in America? You know how old you have to be?
21.
25.
25.
Now this is my own speculation. I don't have any hardcore. I don't have any Hertz secret documents. But do you know why that is? The average age for black men in the 80s, the average age that they lived to in the 80s and the 90s is 25. So you could almost ensure that you got guys who aren't going to take advantage of your vehicle because they're not going to be alive. After 25, they won't be here. You see what I'm saying? They're not going to be here anymore. They're gone.
Not only that, Darby,
so it looks like my camera.
No.
Looks like I'm working. Looks like I'm back. I'm back, baby. Maybe I'm back.
Still,
but yeah.
Well, no, still. So like even taking it back, right? Like Joe Biden, right? Like even like he said, Democrats was on primarily every crime bill. They definitely were on that 86 money laundering act, right? And they definitely only decided in 86 that now it's a problem. We're seeing the influx of what we see black criminal enterprises, and now it's a problem that money, like people are able to money launder in America like that. Like that's literally what we can take that to mean. Darvell, you still on mute? Darvell, you muted? Yeah.
If y'all gonna start doing that money thing, we gotta quit that. You can't do that too. You're talking about like that's what they say. Oh yeah, y'all money. No, we can't do this no more.
Right.
Let's see if his video work now on the chat. But yeah, like so where we at, right, with the 80s events, right? We just kind of covered the Contra Nicaraguans. We talked about how in the 80s we got the crack epidemic ravaging the black community. We got AIDS ravaging the black community. We got the government, specifically agencies who were formerly doing COINTELPRO. Maybe they stopped. Maybe they came up with a better one because of cell phones and all this other new gadgetry coming out. But we got those guys moving in the background. And we got politicians like Joe Biden passing the crime bill acts along with other Democrats and making comments about our people to support and then what caused these people to get into this situation that they're now in, right? So you're looking at that from a system standpoint on top of mass incarceration and ultimately what we can say about the American court system is that there is widespread discrimination that still lasts until this day, 2021. So in the 80s, when the media has trained the white population to look at these people as criminals and dogs, stacked on top of white racism that already existed from Democratic parties or Republican politicians who said these people are animals, you got an America that's apathetic to the plight of Black America. And you got an America that really is saying, at all terms, we will fuck you guys over, but at the same time, do not complain about it to us because it's not our fault. So that's really where we were at with the 80s so far, right? I got a clip that I can play. I think just share my video. Yeah. Okay. Hold on. I'm gonna share my screen. Actually, my bad. Is the audio gonna be enacted, Darvell, when I share it? All right, you mute.
Just make sure you check the box.
Okay.
Stedman, we got an echo coming. Yes.
All right, let me know when y'all can see my screen. Okay, I see it. Okay, so this clip I'm about to play, guys, is from Michelle Alexander. It's a little animation I put together under one of my YouTube profiles, Black Contraband Media. But listening to what Michelle says is as she's framing this conversation, she's going to just mention some statistics about Chicago in the 70s and 80s, specifically around this crack era epidemic in the government's response or lack thereof of one. So let me play this. Let me know if you guys can hear it.
But in certain spaces, At bottom, what makes a community safe is not the number of guns,
We got an echo, but yeah.
good schools, the number of good jobs, the number of educational opportunities, the numbers of opportunities people have for living a decent life. Those are the numbers that matter most when it comes to violence. And in Chicago, as in so many other cities and communities across America, a choice has been made. It is a deliberate choice, and it is a choice that has been made over and over and over again. Rather than good schools, we have been willing to build high-tech prisons. Rather than create jobs and invest in the communities that need it most, we have embarked on an unprecedented race to incarcerate that has left millions of Americans permanently locked up or locked out. William Julius Wilson has written an excellent book about the changes that have occurred in Chicago and other communities around the country entitled When Work Disappears. And in that book, he cites statistics showing that when you control for joblessness, the racial disparities and violent crime disappear. In other words, if you compare white jobless men with black jobless men, rates of violent crime are roughly the same. Men who are jobless, particularly chronically jobless, are more likely to be violent. Now, joblessness does not excuse violence by any means. Most people who are jobless do not resort to violence. But what we know, and what is no secret, is that communities that are plagued by exceedingly high levels of joblessness are likely to be violent. But a shift occurred here in Chicago and in communities across America, urban communities, beginning in the late 50s, early 60s, into the 1970s, where work disappeared. It used to be that factories would be located in urban areas near segregated Black communities, so those factories could have quick and easy access to cheap Black labor. In fact, as late as 1970, more than 70% of all African Americans working in the Chicago area held blue-collar jobs, factory jobs. Almost overnight, those jobs vanished. By 1987, the industrial employment of Black men had plummeted to 28%. Due to deindustrialization, globalization, technological advancement, factories closing down, jobs moving overseas, hundreds of thousands of people, overwhelmingly Black men, found themselves suddenly jobless, trapped in racially segregated, jobless communities. Trapped. Economic collapse occurred in urban areas across the country. Now, we could have responded to this crisis, to this literal depression occurring in cities like Chicago and Baltimore and Philadelphia and Detroit and beyond. We could have responded to this crisis, this economic collapse, this literal depression, with an outpouring of care, compassion, and concern. We could have responded with bailout packages, economic stimulus programs. We could have provided job training, particularly to young people coming up in these communities, so they could make the rough transition from an industrial economy to a service-based economy. But no, we chose a different road, a road more familiar when it comes to matters of race. We chose the road of division, punitiveness, and despair. We as a society ended the war on poverty and declared the war on drugs.
That's really all I wanted to share, guys. Like she covered a lot, like basically, what we were just talking about in this show. But ultimately, America, like the federal government, the state governments, they have chosen time and time again the wrong path, the one that we are too familiar with, the one that ties to this country's origin and history. You know what I'm saying? So that
Yeah, I mean, I just wish people all understood that and carried that forward, especially within our community, as being advocates for ourselves and understanding that a lot of what you get fed is just stuff that's been this garbage. I won't even try to make it anything else. It's just always garbage. And even the media outlets that are black want to use that garbage to underpin subjugation of people and just kind of neutering black power. Like we talked about that Clubhouse conversation that you had or you were a part of, right? Where the woman was thinking that it all had to do with just, working hard as you should and stuff like that. So
yeah, like we all doing all right. We all worked hard, but like think about all the people who were sucked up in that system, particularly that just didn't have the same exceptionalism.
And also think about, although people may think we've worked hard, we've achieved, we're in places of comfort, understand that where we are right now is not where our counterparts are, because we don't have the wealth being handed down to us that our parents, our grandparents should have accrued if they hadn't been through this shit. So the reality is that even though we may be feeling comfortable today, a lot of my contemporaries, a lot of people that we know, a lot of people who are buffies who think things are just fine, just good enough. They having kids, ain't got 50 grand in the bank per child each year going toward that child just for that savings. They don't even have the house down payment because they had the house when they got it. It's all been rental. When you think about that, no shade, but the reality is your life may be comfortable, but your life will be much, 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 much more secure if you would deal with this problem that we keep talking to you about every week, twice a month. We tell you about this every other week, twice a month. We come in here, and this is just an example of how they gutted your grandmother, your grandfather, your great great grandmother, your great great grandfather, and now your parents. That's all this is. And people want to act like, well, I'm gonna just sit down and just do this. I'm gonna just do the best I can. We can't be causing no problems. And Stedman jokes about not having internet because he thinks the feds is tapping in and jacking up the connection. They may very well be. The Alphabet Boys could be outside of my spot right now. But the reality is that I don't know about you, but my moral and purpose compass, and I think it should be the same for every black person in here with any intellect, should be to make this place into a place that you can honorably sit down, relax, and most importantly, have a future for not only yourself and your children, but also stand on the shoulders of those who got you to where you are today. And so I think we got Stedman back. Too many people wanted. We got echo from you, dog.
From me?
Yes.
I wonder why.
It might be the call. Is it the call line?
Call line is muted over here.
Yeah, I hung up.
Let me try to mute.
I got my microphone and my headphones on, so I should have feed.
Hold on. There's no echo anymore. No, yes, there is. I can still hear me. I can hear myself, man. Like, no. Because when you're muted, it doesn't even get feedback. Like, I mean, Ernest is unmuted, and we're good. Well, hold on. ABCD, this is terrible, y'all. I apologize to our live stream viewers right now. I really, really, really do. And now I'm unmuting, stepping again, and there it is.
This is madness. But I'll tell you what, I'd rather have echo than nothing, but I'm going to see what's going on here. Oh!
You know what? Hey!
You got it.
Here we go. You know what I had? So I had echo cancel. So I had echo cancellation on my microphone, right? And then for some reason it went off and put stereo back on it in the settings for your mic. So that might be what happened.
Okay.
I do have on headphones. Okay. Because you don't hear echo now, right?
Yeah. You back in again now. So I think we covered. Well, it's back a little bit there. I think we covered the second topic for a good portion. We can definitely move into that third piece before we get into your man's now. But for that third piece, we just was going to basically re-mention this also. Guys, I know we laid out a couple tidbits here and there. We played some video clips. But what we really want to state is that because of years of foul play from the United States government at the federal, state, and local level. At the state level, we're talking about state-sanctioned racism and almost like I like to say Nazi American like laws, targeted at a specific group, which only furthered that group's genocide in this country. Two, we're talking about like a country that has literally, like I said, allowed these brutalities to occur against a single people. And after all of this time, what has happened is a group of people who have been targeted are now at a point or a stage in their life as Americans where they are saying, give me death or give me liberty. And ultimately, I feel like they're saying that because they're completely disconnected from the American system because of these years of oppression that have led to this boiling point where we now see in certain Black neighborhoods there's where there is high poverty, there's more likelihood of crime. But what we see is there is a disconnect from wanting to be a true American citizen, from wanting to be in the military, from wanting to be a police officer, from wanting to be in the legal system, from wanting to be a voter. And that is all because of the government's foul play. I think right now, if we had to do a trustability scale from the Black American community, we would have a 0% trust of the American government. And I don't think until steps are taken to truly reconcile this country's past, not only for slavery, not only for Jim Crow and the Black codes, but for the damage that they have committed from the 60s until 2020s. Until we're willing to have a true reconciliation of all of that, I believe we are set at a fork in the road where, one, we could have major conflict in this country, internal strife, or two, we could have true reformation and change or focus towards true justice. Because as James Baldwin said, those who are denied the American dream will one day by their very presence wreck it. So, if Black Americans are continue to be denied of true justice, of true equality, of true repair in this country by our own very existence, we will. And I think you guys can get the message from Minneapolis and all of these other places. We will wreck the integration of this country. It's not I don't think the FBI, I don't know what the FBI is doing to plan for that. Maybe it's immigration. But that's where we're going. You guys got any comments on that?
Stedman, you got anything? You there?
Yeah. Am I all right or am I echoing still?
You good. You good.
Oh yeah. Man. So here's what I think about that actually. With integration, here's what happens.
Okay.
With integration, you have a situation where you can further disconnect the people in the country from the harm that has been committed against the freedmen. Right?
I agree.
So what ends up happening? Well, what ends up happening is as we stand now as a segregated society, or a largely segregated society among racial lines, there is a clear distinction of who the descendants of freedmen are and who aren't. But if you have this amalgamation of mixed, milky, chocolatey, caramely people, what happens is that goes away, right? That delineation goes away because then it says who's accountable now, right? We're all the same. Who's accountable? And so that's my impression of it. It is an attempt. You see it like in the media now. Joe Biden talked about it when he spoke to the civil rights leaders, how you see more commercials with white men and Black women, or interracial commercials, interracial couples in commercials. Like that's a sign of progress. But what that does do is it just dilutes the down, right? Because now we know who deserves justice. But if everybody's mixed, we all just one big homogenous group. Who deserves justice and from whom? You see what I'm saying? So I think it's still a trick. After justice, anything is on the table. After justice, before justice, we need to stick to what we have and work on justice. That's how I feel about it. And my wife is mixed, so it's not to say like I got some kind of hidden agenda, but I understand that it's difficult. It is difficult when you look at these situations and you try to figure out Like I said, who is to blame and who deserves to be repaired? And we all just mixed.
Mm-hmm. I think that's definitely like a part of the cons of integration, but I think like we still got this unique justice claim where we just see the government and white people from time and time again. They just can't get enough of themselves with targeting our group and doing what they need to do to keep us down. Now I think like if anything, we do have to give a kudos to Dr. Perry for coming out and trying to speak the truth at the last minute after he damn near drilled the nail home in the coffin. I mean, personally, if there's any futuristic agents out there, just don't come clean. But I feel like you do got to come clean because we would never know, right? So.
Right. Yeah, no, that's critical. We appreciate it, but it's also just, I don't know, man. I won't say it's overwhelming, but I will tell you that this topic is deep, it's heavy, and what do you go from here? Sometimes that's kind of where you are.
Well, you got Obama talking about a post-racial America, knowing that the entire executive agency willfully and deliberately targeted Black American communities in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, which is only 30 years ago, 40, 50 years ago. So you got those type of things that we're dealing with. More symbolism, more lies from politicians. I think Nancy Pelosi came out recently and said that George Floyd sacrificed his life for justice in America.
Yeah, man.
Like that, man. Like I think we're in a historic time, so we are in for historic events. We're seeing a lot of crazy news lately, and I think one thing I'm hoping that'll happen is Black Americans are waking up to the truth and the realities of our situation. I mean, I'm woke, you guys are woke, but it's a couple other folks that we ride past every day that we say hey to every day, and they don't care about this type of shit. They don't know that it's going to be checkmate. Like everybody keeps saying about 2050. The government has this shit so much to the science that 2030 is really over with. Like that last 20 years is not going to do us any justice.
We ain't got nothing on that. we ain't got no way out of that. Oh my goodness. Not at this rate anyway.
Yeah, that's where we're going, right?
Right. So
go ahead, Darville.
I think we lost our man Stedman. I think it's time to go ahead and pivot toward our closing.
Yep.
I don't.
No, I'm still here.
Hey, look at there. You got anything to close this out, though, Stedman? Something brief.
Oh, brief. Right. Well, what I wanted to say. So the U.S. has engaged in over 80 coups, political.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not coups. Involved in like elections and political affairs. Between 1947 and 2000 or 2010, 80 times, not including coups and not including like military intervention, just involved in the politics. And it's like 50 or 60 in South America alone, right? And so when you see the migrants coming up and you look at the immigration situation, it's a direct result of American foreign policy. These people would rather be at home. But the American government has an interest in making sure that all these countries which have natural resources keep their prices low. Even in Haiti, they was going to raise the minimum wage in Haiti 15 cents. And Hillary Clinton, as the Secretary of State, would not allow them to do it. The revolution they're having in Haiti right now is because of a U.S.-backed dictator they put in office. What? A U.S.-backed, I won't say dictator, a U.S.-backed president they put in office. They tried it with Venezuela. They're still trying it with Juan Guaido. They tried it in Bolivia, trying to get rid of Evo Morales because they got lithium in Bolivia, right? Venezuela has the largest oil reserves on the planet. But Nicaragua, they did it, right, because they didn't want the socialist government to succeed. They didn't want, they claimed they were afraid that the Russians would infiltrate. But the real fear is that if American people could see that their government is doing a bad job, and they could see it because all the other countries around the world are doing a better job, even the poor countries, you would revolt here. You would do something about it, right? The reason that the United States hates socialism or communism, it's not because it doesn't work, because if it didn't work, you would allow it to fail without any external intervention. They don't like it because it gives the people a voice and it gives the people a stake in what goes on in their countries. And America is not about that life. It never have been. And so, you know, they hide behind the boogeyman of communism, of socialism. Oh, they're socialists. Venezuela's socialist. We're going to end up like Venezuela. The U.S. has had sanctions on Venezuela for at least 10 years in some form. They tried to kill Hugo Chavez, and it failed. They tried to kill Castro like 300 times. Okay? America feels like they have the opportunity to control the world. Please, everybody, we're going to put those links in the description. Read the articles. Watch that 50-minute documentary. Watch that clip of that CIA agent, John Stockwell, so you can get an idea of the American propaganda machine, how they get the message out around the world and change and try to and manipulate your perspective. Because, I mean, you know, maybe that's why they didn't want me on today, because we talking about COINTELPRO and the black box and black desk and all this. But please open your eyes up, open your brains up, if you have any hope. Jesus.
All right, with that, y'all, let's go ahead and bust into Mutant Stead for his echo. Your man's in them.
You are listening to Your Man's Now. This your man's? Hey, yo, who man's is this? Hey, yo, who man's is this? Hey, yo, who man's is this?
Whose man's is this? I need to know. I really need to know.
Okay, we back. So we gotta talk about something, y'all. Oh, hold on. We definitely gotta talk about something. Sorry about that. What's her name? Susan. We know Susan. Wojcicki. Hold on. Help me out, Ernest.
Wojcicki. I'm just
Sicky licky. All right, listen, I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean to mess up your name, but here's the deal. This is the CEO of YouTube. And she had a nice little interview not too long ago. Right? And she said some stuff during this interview, right? This interview, she revealed that when it comes to information dispensary on YouTube, specifically information pertaining to current events, education, and the news, formally, whether it be something happening on your block corner, or it be what's going down at the White House, or even what's going down in London, Moscow, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Auburn, wherever. What's Auburn, man? Alabama. That's what I was talking about. You know, they have a little bit of a bias at YouTube, don't they? They like to promote sources they consider, what do they say, Ernest? Sources they consider to be legitimate, or like, what do they say?
I mean, my basis off that is they're talking about mainstream media. They say legit news sources, which would refer to being like an incorporated or mainstream service, I would say, because any other news would just be alternative news because it's not mainstream. So
I just said something on Facebook a couple like yesterday. I said, what did I say on Facebook? It was something real simple about media, about news specifically. I said that newsrooms are capitalistic engines governed by quid pro quo and cash. So I can insert that, you know, in parallel to this idea that what they're promoting is whoever is in the circle of prominence. And in that circle of prominence is only going to rise the white capitalistic organizations that have the ability to rise in a space that's white governed and white controlled. So what happens as a result is that any type of media that's gained specifically a foothold with the black community, or it is black owned and operated, or it's focusing on black topics, is dang near guaranteed to be marginalized and pushed to the side on an automatic basis, because you do not have that type of leverage as a black media company to put out any of your own information. That's why we have so many. I mean, you can put it out, but are people going to hear it? Are people going to stumble across it like they stumble across MSNBC for all things? I mean, they stumble across Young Turks easier than anything black. So when you have that type of thing going on, you are starting to censor and exclude, right? Is that not what's happening?
Mm-hmm. I think we've seen this across multiple platforms, right? Like from Facebook. More recently, like me being on Clubhouse, I got to see this real time. But you know, we have these folks who don't have the interests of Black Americans, right? Like from the jump. But at the same time, we have these people who have their elitist interests. At the same time, like you said, it's all tied to capital. It's always a money play. So I would be surprised to see, because YouTube, in my eyes, it started off as being great because it had all these independent sources of news and information and video seeking, right? That was the motto at first, but now when mainstream companies got wind of this, they may have increased their funding to this organization or partnerships with this organization in order to get off their interest, right? And so I think that's how Susan and these folks have been operating. We got Susan, we got owner of Facebook, what's his name?
Mark
Zuckerberg. Yeah, and so for Clubhouse, it's Ben Horowitz, which he's been specifically censoring and limiting Black American reparationist voices on the app, because these apps, we're arguing with people who are who may have a bit of esteem, you know, in pro-immigration circles or like just pro-blackness circles, right? Like we talk about groups like Dan Cobra and all of that. So it is against their interest when Black Americans like ourselves are talking about these topics that we're bringing up today. And what we've seen on Clubhouse is some folks got their feelings hurt because of people's political stance, and they censored us, banned us off the app, and or a couple folks got banned off the app, which just shows you that in today's modern time, one difficulty we face because of lack of ownership is the censoring of our voices outright, and it's almost more effective than the black codes, right? Because it's almost like we can control what people think about you, how they feel about you, but when you try to refute those ideas or even talk against it, we can just remove your content.
You know, and there's one thing to be said about it is that I recently was poking around saying this idea that Black America is, or Black people is what seasoned America, what gave America its flair, swag, which gave America, you know, a lot of the fashionable trends, whether they be tangible or psychological, that are in play today. Even if they're old to us, America's still eating them and chewing on them. You ever walk through a store and you see a guy, he's got a cap on in a certain way, he's wearing his clothes in a certain way, and it reminds you of somebody you've seen in your neighborhood 10 years ago? A white guy who's wearing his attire this way. And it's like, I'm not throwing shade, but what I am saying is, like, I feel like this guy, did he grow up near the hood or something? Like, you don't know how to place your hands on it, but you see something about it that's intangible, but it's physically there and you can see it. And so when you think about our influence on this country, you bring it back to YouTube and you realize that we were part of the engine that made YouTube fire. When you go around and you look on YouTube, some of the most popular entertainment channels are the Black entertainers. But that's all we can seem to hold a foothold on. You on mute, man.
Anybody? I was following you for sure. What'd you say?
So when you go to YouTube, Black entertainers are the only ones who can really be the nexus of the subscription base. Unfortunately, they're the ones who hold the most viewers. It's not Black engineers, scientists. It's not Black people doing a lot of. Outside of what Marquise Lease, MKHD, is that what his thing? Outside of, like, he's honestly an outlier.
Yeah.
Right.
Few exceptions in it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, outside of them exceptions, that's what we're doing: hair, nails, and comedy. You know, short clips. And so when you talk about these guys censoring, what they're doing is they're allowing things that actually, at best, hold our water for a few people, and even make us look like we're just still this buck dancing entertainers that we've always been characterized as all the way back, right? But then when we come forward with the channels that you and I know, the channels that have been putting out information and analysis, whether it be socio-political or economic, these channels. But then when we come forward with the channels that you and I know. Oh my God, Stepman keeps taking himself off mute with crazy echoes.
He said he fixed his stereo.
He ain't fixed nothing. I was listening to myself on our own screen.
My mic is muted, so I don't know how my sound is even coming. I got a mute button on my mic. My mute button on my mic is held down. I don't know how my sound is even coming out.
This is going to a
crash. I'm saying it can't be me. Unless it's sound coming in, the microphone coming in from somewhere else. You only got the one mic.
But Susan, all right, cool. So you okay right now? Just whatever you're doing, you're rubbing the mic or the mic on your. Hey, is the mic on your headset? The earbuds, is it on? And feeding into? No, never mind. Forget it.
The noise against the thing.
All right, something's rubbing. Anyway.
Yeah.
We don't have no news foothold on YouTube, and they're continuing to marginalize us. Every time I listen to something, I hear them talking about, oh, they turned off notifications for our channel. Oh, if you didn't, know that I posted the new videos because they got the new videos hidden, or they done hid the old videos, or they demonetized a bunch of them. You hear this stuff from black channels. White channels, they probably get hit with that stuff, but then they get out of it. They go to, problem resolution. They get the strikes rescinded, whatever. Black channels, they over here bouncing and jumping around, dipping and dodging. It's like, this is why. This is why we're bringing your mans and them up on Susan today, because this is explicitly what she's talking about. They got algorithms and AI and everything set up and geared towards promoting the mainstream white messages. And then they will let the black messages come through that are not critical of anything, and then anything that might be educational, newsworthy, or otherwise informative, specifically from a black lens, oh no, that may not make it. And that's on top of them not even getting the society's gaze to support what those media outlets are doing. Like, we can talk about that dude Roly Poly. He ain't even got that many people subscribed to him, but he's been on mainstream TV. How that happened?
About the 2020 election and the steps the mainstream media took, even platforms like YouTube and Facebook, their involvement in this, which could shape an entire political opinions. Like that's borderline. It's almost like if they build a headquarters for Facebook, maybe in 10 years we could go and burn that motherfucker down. But like that's where we're headed, because having that much power or political sway to you got millions of people on your apps, or millions of people looking at these opinions, to censor one and allow one to foster is a way of getting off misinformation, like they so often like to use, right? That term misinformation. It's like the term racism. White people that went and took it and made it mean something else, and now black people like, man, how can we be racist?
Right. It's like what is it? It's geez, it just slipped right by me. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's just something they take and they flip on their head, and then you're like, what happened? I thought we understood what this was. It just got stolen from us. Anywho, y'all need to watch out for your girl, Susan. They're using black energy to create things like YouTube and other platforms, and they start censoring and excluding us once they get to the height that they want. Once they get enough seasoning on the chicken, Ernest, they throw away the seasoning.
Yep. So what's the other one we got, guys, for your men's and them?
Well, we're going to talk about the Asian hate crime bill and how there's some stuff laced in there. I think I want to do a whole show on that. We're not going to get into that. And, Biden did send some money to Central America, but I mean, what?
Hey, it's nothing that we didn't expect that man to do. I mean, not as long as it ain't for black Americans. I mean, shit, I wouldn't be surprised what he did.
Listen, the moment he announces he gave black, how much money did he send to South America? Central America?
300, and it was over 300 million. I want to say 321 million.
The moment he announces just giving us cash, whether it be $1,000 or 300,000, it's going to be some upset people. A lot more than who are upset about this foreign policy.
$310 million.
Yeah, that ain't nothing though, for real.
Yeah, I mean, it ain't nothing, but I mean, if you took that $310 million and directed it at programs in Detroit, what would that do for Black? Just $310 million directly, like to this one neighborhood or environments, you know.
I've been watching Nicole Small's show here the past couple of days, and she's talking about that Detroit's getting an influx of money here, and that, you know, she's encouraging people who live in certain districts, who live in the districts of the city, to start writing down kind of what they want. I believe I might be incorrect in the exact, you know, phrasing and structure, what the idea of what needs to be done is, but basically Detroit's got money coming, or they have money that needs to be used for these neighborhoods and for the people's needs. And you know, there probably aren't enough people listening to that to really get to action, or they're not going to do action because, like we talked about before, the system is so good. They make you eat butter on Monday and you still taste the butter 3 weeks later. And you just like, I don't need to eat. Anyway, we got to shut this down, yo. Steven's still trying to restart his computer and then his modem and then trying to get his phone to come on. I don't know. You got anything to close it out with, Ernest?
Yeah, standard housekeeping. I would say you guys stay tuned. We might be doing a part 3 of this. There's so much information to glean from like COINTELPRO or even other programs. Like we haven't even touched upon how local law enforcement has been influenced by policies like COINTELPRO. You know,
right?
The federal government break these laws. Imagine what they decided to do in these cities and various towns after seeing like we just got to operate off the radar. And we can do whatever we want to do. And I think we could bring up cases or shows in the future where we're covering these articles of officers stealing drugs from drug dealers and reselling them back to the same communities, planting drugs on people, you know, working with lawyers to booster up juvenile facilities to get a kickback payment from that. I mean, not lawyers, but judges to, you know, sentence these juveniles to these corrections, like all type of stuff we could go into, but this is the system at play. So I just wanted to let you guys know, again, just do a recap. The damage that the government did in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, you know, it's probably equivalent to just as much damage as they had done right after slavery. So from Reconstruction until 65. I feel like the crack epidemic, if you think about it again, it was one of the most destructive forces in the Black community. And specifically, you know, the collapsing of gangs intentionally, you know, due to the government's own involvement there. Maybe we don't have proof of this. I'm pretty sure we could find something that, you know, alludes to this point. But ultimately, what we're trying to say here is that COINTELPRO was a devastating program for Black Americans. A lot of things that ultimately changed our directory in this country could be, you know, linked directly to that program or to that bill. So as a people, I feel like, you know, we got to do more of our due diligence and figure out all of these wrongs and misdoings, because, you know, when we get a president like Barack Obama or a Black American, someone who you think is a Black American or one of us, telling us that we're in a post-racial America despite having access to thousands of records or documents that prove the government is still actively interested in ruining Black advancement in this country. I think, you know, that just speaks volumes. So going forward, again, you guys stay diligent. It was 2021. We're living in historic times, as I've already stated. We just seen an Asian hate crime bill be passed, but nothing for Black Americans after being the number one victims of hate crimes in America and having 1,000 to 100 examples of this criminality in law enforcement, in the government, directly impacting our people. So, you know, with that being said, I'll leave you guys with Gerard's statement. We have no permanent friends. We have no permanent enemies. We only have permanent interests. So that's all I'll say on that.
Hey, and I don't want to cross any of those lines. What he said was an excellent way to close us out today. Y'all know how I feel about it all. I always make it very plain and clear. Y'all need to get into this fight. Stop trying to take just, you know, and sit on the sidelines and trying to do well just to be well, and the bootstrapperism and all the other stuff that we got going on right now. Just cut it out and get in the fight. We need you, or you and your kids will never realize what we should have, because if you don't ask, if you don't fight for it, we don't get it, and we will never get it. Anyway, we out, y'all. Take care, be safe, and we're going to catch you in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Peace.
Peace.